back in 2012, around about February, I started in the old workshop over in the corner as a vehicle restorer. And in those days, because it wasn't open to the public, just by appointment, the museum, we spent most of our time just restoring trucks. And maintaining what was in here as well, because it's quite an important part of the job, is maintaining what's there so that it doesn't deteriorate and end up requiring tons of work. You know? So yeah, did that for, that was about 6.5 years as well, and then had a wee career change to not getting my hands dirty for a time. And then Joss rang me one day and said, how would you like to come and look after our motorcycles at Motorcycle Mecca? And I thought about that. Yeah, that would be quite good. I might eventually retire at some point, but heading towards that, yeah, that would be quite good. I've always had an interest in motorcycles. And on we went and started into it. And then when I did start, Josh said, well, we'll just have to see what happens, but you might spend 50% of your time at Mecca and 50% here. To be able to come here and be part of the Chrysler restoration has been very rewarding.
So I started here in April 2017, sort of replaced Malcolm at that stage, and as a vehicle restorer, and became workshop manager about 2.5 years ago, I guess.
We did the bus, we did that Rio cream one, put that back together. Did we restore it? I didn't, but I did put some of it back together. The 1418 Mercedes, that was a huge job. Why was it a big job? The actual running gear was good to go, but the cab itself was an absolute major. In a room over the road in the old workshop was the interior of 2 cabs, and I had to make one out of 2. And when you're putting something like that back together, when you get to the last bolt, you know you're finished. But when you've got a whole other interior there, you don't know if you've got everything back in. I found it really, really confusing. So it ended up a biggest job. While all that was going on, we'd started the tanker restoration, which was a major too. The fact that the back part of it was so destroyed.
Well, that was sort of around April 2017, and the Chrysler had been started. Howard had started on the Chrysler, so that's what was going on when I came along. Yeah. So although the ambulance it got slipped in there as well, but it was a full restoration, the ambulance. Well, the ambulance came up on Trade Me. It had been restored before, but there wasn't a lot ambulance about it, particularly inside. It was just an empty shell, really, in the back. So Joss bought that off Trade Me, and we had to search overseas to get all the ambulance gear, the stretchers and the nurse's chair and the casualty chair and all that. That all came out of Belgium. The rest of it we built off pictures. The stretchers sort of gave us the size of the cabinetry and everything in the back. So we worked backwards, really. Yeah, long story short, it became a full restoration. There was a lot of bodywork repairs done, full mechanical restoration to get it to what it is today. It was sort of done over a 3-year period. When we researched the vehicle, we discovered it had this, when it was new, it had this intermediate engine. So it was sort of the second generation of the 36 horsepower engine. But they were an absolute disaster. They only made them for 9 months, and they broke crankshafts and wore out camshafts and cam followers, and they basically recalled them and put 40 horse 1200s in them. Some parts of the world they did repair the intermediate engines. So it was decided to try and source one of these motors. So it became quite a mission to get all the correct parts. And a guy in Auckland had, I think he had about eight of these engines, which he'd pulled out from under a house or something. It was all a bit bizarre. And anyway, it turns out he had an engine case 3 numbers away from the original. So anyway, a decision was made to buy all 8 engines, which gave us enough engine parts to build 2, because we worked out that Joss's other 59 microbus, which is still yet to be restored, it also had one of these intermediate engines. So out of those 8 motors, we were able to create 2. I think we had about 16 cylinder heads. 12 of them were cracked. So, and it was just as well we bought the whole lot, really. So, yeah, but just finding all the correct bits. I mean, we've only just finished the second one now because we couldn't find the correct fuel pump and distributor, and so that's only been finished a couple of months ago, that motor.
That came in from the United States in a container. The biggest problem with that was it physically wouldn't fit in a container. It was too wide. So in the States, they took the whole tank and everything off and put it in another container, I think that's the story, on its side. As you can imagine, didn't do it that much good. So it was quite a big job to try and resurrect that. We had panels made here. I made some panels also. But the whole top piece where you can actually physically walk along the top of that tanker was made here as well. But to fit some of that stuff up was quite a mission. And the whole tank, if you like, the top of it was rusted right out. It had a hole in the back about that big, but it had no bottom. If you looked in the top caps, where they obviously filled them back in the day, you could see the road underneath. So I ended up in the yard with that upside down and spent a whole day cutting the bottom half out of that tank. Someone said at the time, I think that's the worst job that's ever had to be done here. It felt like it too. And then, of course, it had to have a whole new bottom in it. So we bought sheets of panel steel and I cut them accordingly, but then had to try and assume the shape of the bottom of the tank, which was also a bit of a mission. And we had strappers around it tightened up to hold that curve while I started tack welding the bottom back in it again. And it eventually took shape. There's some of these side panels were so destroyed after in transit, as it were. We started to put those on and it started to take some shape again. I pulled the motor down and it was completely worn out. It didn't matter what you looked at, it was worn out. So we got one out of the States, which was a very, very good order. All it really needed was a paint and put it in. The windscreen was another disaster. We ordered a windscreen from the States and it had arrived in Auckland and we paid the fees that were due and all was well, but somewhere between Auckland and here it looked like someone had driven over it with a forklift or something similar. It was in a million pieces and no one assumed any responsibility for that, of course. So it actually had to have a perspex screen in it because it was all finished, ready to come in on display. And I put this perspex windscreen and it actually looked okay. Mm-hmm. The average person might not have been able to even pick it up, but at least it got it looking fit to be on display. So yeah, that was a mission.
Well, just before the ambulance was the 91 964 Porsche that was bought in the UK and shipped over, and the brief was, can you change the colour please? It was a very eye-catching shade of pink. However, They had painted it pink as a beer shell with a roll cage in it. It was an ex-Targa car in the UK, tarmac rally car basically. But we had to strip the thing to get rid of all this pink, which was in every nook and cranny, and it turned into quite a large job really. And of course, the old story, when you paint a car and go to put it back together, everything you go to bolt back on it looks terrible, so you end up tidying and painting everything, and to make everything look as good as it could or should. That was another big job. It was probably 18 months from go to woe on that car. Not a restoration, but a big job. Yeah. So it spends a bit of time in the museum. It would be Chrysler. So it's been ongoing. Very difficult restoration. Very rare car. There's only 65 of them ever made, so you can buy nothing. A lot of stuff missing. There'd been an accident. The chassis was bent. Yeah, it's been a huge job. But it's come a long way in the last 24 months. Where it hasn't been on the back burner, so to speak, and hasn't been interrupted with other jobs, other restorations. It's been, right, we need to get this done. And particularly Dallas and Chris have not been off of it. A large percentage of that restoration has been done in the last 2 years, and we're hoping to have it finished by Christmas, which is only a matter of 3 weeks away. Not much pressure there.
It's had its challenges, hasn't it?
What?
And that is also one thing about restoration. Sometimes it's not until you actually get inside a component, whatever it happens to be, and you think, oh no, this is just getting worse and worse and worse. And then you're in way deeper than you intended to go, but that's the nature of the beast.
You don't know what you got until you start dismantling things. I mean, the gearbox was a prime example.
Yep.
I mean, there was 2 gear cutters involved in that in the end.
And one of the bigger challenges was the fact that so many components within that vehicle are metric rather than imperial. So if you go to buy a bearing for it or something, being American, you would expect it to be imperial, but that's not the case. There's a lot of metric stuff on it.
There's a lot of metric stuff in that car. It's quite bizarre. Had the bearing supplier somewhat confused.
Had the gear cutters confused.
It did. Jeez.
Cut them to an imperial
size,
shape, whatever you want to call it, and they were wrong. So you assemble the gearbox and it won't rotate because the gears are a different profile, so it just doesn't work.
Malcolm was doing the steering box while I was doing the electrical, that sort of thing, Yes, we were bouncing ideas and theories off each other, but we were also doing separate jobs at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Actually, the steering box was another issue, wasn't it?
Sure was, yep.
It was overhauled, repaired, restored, whatever you'd like to call it, not by ourselves, and it had to go back because it wasn't right. And then when we got it in, realised it was so bad that I had to pull it out, dismantle it, and fix it properly, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, we had to go searching for other options, didn't we?
Yep. And again, that as Darren said, the fact that it is so rare is the problem, really.
Well, there's only 3 right-hand drive ones made. So where do you get a right-hand drive steering box from for it? You just don't. It's the only right-hand drive one left. So, we had a steering box, one of one, really, and had to convert left-hand drive internals to fit in the right-hand drive steering box.
The fact that the vehicle had been through a couple of floods while with the previous owner made sure that it had destroyed every bearing and every gear basically, whether it was gearbox, diff or steering box.
They were pretty much destroyed, that's right. It's been commented that it's probably one of the most difficult restorations done in this country in the last 10 years. I mean, there's been some difficult stuff done, but it's right up there. Very challenging car. Looking at it last week when the back bumper went on it and the mud guards were on it, very nice car. Very, very nice car. And it will stand out. It will make a statement.
Definitely.
Yep. Yep.
Darren and I were on the phone there some stage later in the week, last week. He said, "Oh, you've got to go down and have a look at that Chrysler," because it was starting to become complete, you know. So I did on Thursday afternoon, and it is impressive, there's no doubt about it. Full with the Chrysler, to actually give that its last clean and see it driving down the road, or to be driving it down the road, it's a pretty cool feeling. It's probably worth mentioning, I think, we've talked about this before, about there's restorations, and there's restorations. And a lot of the vehicles in here have been restored for in here. You can hop in them and you can drive them down the road and you're doing okay. But a full restoration, like the ambulance that Darren's talking about, that is everything. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think a restoration's a restoration. But when you get into every nut and bolt to ensure that vehicle can be driven anywhere you want to drive it to, it's a little bit more involved and takes a bit more time. You know, some of these trucks down the back here, you could grab one of those and within a few weeks you could have that looking as good as anything else in here. But it's still not a full restoration.
Not a full no.
And those full restorations, they take a lot longer and a lot more work and obviously a lot more money.